inside of you.
Pay attention to the psychological aspects. You would have a competitive advantage over any opponent because you would have the mind of an athlete. He was an incredible athlete. He trained like a champion. All the hours of hard work, lifting and running, it was incredible. But in the moment of truth, out there competing, on that key day, he looked tired. But he wasn't in bad shape, but he was running out of gas. What was going on with that athlete? Emotionally, he was drained. In sports, the idea is you want to break your opponents. You want to break them mentally, you want to break them emotionally, and then you're going to win. You're going to score more points. But in this situation with this athlete, he was running out of gas. And what we're talking about is emotional energy. Physically, he was in very high shape. He was phenomenal. But emotionally, he was struggling. He was too anxious. He was too nervous. There were outside distractions flooding his preconscious mind that were undermining his performance. It is not about stress management anymore. It is not about time management anymore. For scholar athletes, it's about emotional energy management. How much emotional energy do you have in the tank? You are outputting so much energy with academics and your workouts and competing, and you're going year-round. And many times, you're feeling drained. Many times I hear athletes say privately, I'm overextended or I'm overwhelmed, or both. So it's about emotional energy management. And when I talk about emotional energy, what I'm discussing is having that ability to have emotions ready to handle whatever stressors come at you. It's like a person can be intellectually sharp, but I'm talking about being emotionally sharp and being able to manage stressors and conflicts to rise to the occasion. Think about it this way. It's like this water bottle here. In this water bottle is, of course, water. And think of the emotional energy like that water. Every day when you wake up, you've got a certain amount of emotional energy that you can apply to your activities. But as you go through the day, you're getting drained. Little by little, you are giving of your emotional energy. And unfortunately, many of you are running on empty, or at least really close to it. And so you're trying your best to keep it going, but how do we increase your emotional energy? How do we give you more energy so that you can perform really well? Well, one of the first steps is we have to know what your energy level is. What I often say to an athlete is, on a scale of a 0 to 100, with 100 being the highest, if you're in the 90s, that's like an A with your energy. If your energy is in the 80s, that's like a B. 70s, it's a C. 60s, it's D'sville, and anything less than a D, and you're in deep trouble. And so, too often, athletes are hanging around what we call the tipping point. The tipping point is that number for you where only you know it, but it's that magic number that when you would say, when I'm at that number, anything less than that, and I begin to really unravel. My negative thinking begins to creep in. And anything above that, I'm pretty good. So for example, when I work with athletes, I try to get them to have their emotional energy at the time of competition up around an 80 or a 90. And I will take an athlete whose emotional energy is around a 90 any day over an athlete who's around a 60 or a 70. They're just going to be so much better. And so it's very important for you to try to get your emotional energy up as best you can. How do we increase that emotional energy so that it's up there around the 80s or the 90s? Well, one of the things we talked about before is keeping the preconscious mind clear. It's very important because when the preconscious mind is flooded with ongoing stressors that we're just trying to block out and we're trying to really focus, it's very important to keep that preconscious mind clear so that we can have that great performance. Talking about the things in the preconscious mind matter. Praying about the things in the preconscious mind matters. Writing about the things in the preconscious mind really matters. And the more you keep that clear, the less emotional energy is going to zap out of you. Does that make sense to you? And so we've got to deal with that stuff to keep the emotional energy higher. A few recommendations. One, hang out with people that energize you, that give you energy. People that you know and you trust and you feel good around them. They don't drain you of energy. A lot of times in sports, there's a lot of hanger-ons, and you've got to get rid of those people. And so it's very important to focus on the people that energize you and care for you, that give you energy. Focus on the things in life that give you energy as well. For example, there are 3 levels of spiritual gifts. Your lowest level of spiritual gifts are things that you guys can all do, but when you use these gifts, you actually get drained. I mean, you're good at it, but it kind of drains you. The next level of spiritual gifts are those things that when you use the gifts, you kind of break even. Those are okay. But the more time you can spend using your spiritual gifts, the giftedness that God gave you to perform whatever it is that you do, and you're in that sweet spot of using those highest level gifts, oddly enough, you get energized from it. You actually feel better. You actually can perform that, and somehow you walk out of it and you're like, man, I feel great. And that gets your emotional energy higher. It's about emotional energy management. I want you to think now about the things that drain you. What is it that drains you in life? Some people, some activities, some places. And how can you try to minimize the time you spend in those places, or those people, or those experiences? Now, conversely, I want you to think about what fills you up, what gives you energy. So, for example, with this water bottle, what could actually raise that energy back up? I know for me, one of the key things is solitude. That when I actually remove myself from other people and get some real good rest, I actually feel my emotional energy rising. Sleep is a great way of explaining that, right? And listen, I know that you are important. I know you've got a lot of things to do, but it's very important that you recognize that the most successful people in the world even had to pull away. I think of this guy named Jesus. He was very important, and he worked really hard. And you know what he did when he needed a chance to recharge? He went up into the mountains. And he would go there by himself. And he would rest. And he would pray. And so even Jesus needed to go recharge his batteries. To have his emotional energy filled so that he could better serve. That he could better influence people. And so it is with you. You're an athlete. And you are outputting a lot. And I feel for you guys in our society today because there's a lot of drains on you and a lot of things that drain your energy. But as best you can, try to get your emotional energy higher. It's not about time management anymore. It's not about stress management. It's about how well you can manage the precious emotional energy that is always being competed for in so many different directions, and how you can serve that, how you can channel that into your highest level of gifts in the thing that you do better than anybody else, so that by having greater emotional energy, you would have a clear mind, your performance would be better. You truly would have the mind of the athlete.